Good evening, everybody. Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com, live once again in the pale moonlight of Mackey Arena for another season of making the pen in the shirt pocket cool again and breaking down Purdue basketball games for you on video for some reason with our rap video series, an explosive new season of the rap video series. I know you've been counting down the days for these things for some reason. God bless you all for your interest. I appreciate it very much. But I'll be damned if I can figure out the cult following that this thing has developed. Thank you to the Purdue Union Club Hotel, who I'm sure is not going to complain about the clicks that this thing draws. We appreciate your support very much. Thursday night, or in 50 minutes, what I can call tonight, Thursday night, Alan and Tom, my two colleagues, Stetler and Waldorf, as I sometimes call them, will be at the Union for their live show talking about Purdue's football game against Iowa. I think they should call it open mic night. Alan didn't get the joke. Nevertheless, be sure to check out Tom and Alan breaking down Purdue and Iowa live at the Purdue Union Club Hotel. Stop what you're doing right now. Pause this video. Please go to our website, goldandblack.com. All spelled out, goldandblack.com. We are now at the On3 Sports Network. If you woke up on Wednesday morning thinking we'd been fired, we'd been exiled, we'd been put in witness relocation, we'd fallen down a well, we'd fallen down a volcano, we'd been eaten by dingoes, whatever it might have been, we weren't. We're perfectly fine. Our site has moved over to the On3 Sports Network. If you go over there, type in goldandblack.com, it will take you there. You can join us for your first year for only $1. That, if you're an existing subscriber to us, that will make you whole on whatever investment you would have made to have been with us. We hope, but it is only $1, even if you weren't an existing member of our site. $1. Do you know what $1 gets you anymore? Not a damn thing. And some of you might be saying, you know what, I'm watching this video and I'm seeing not a damn thing. I don't know if it's worth the money. But I can tell you, I could walk around this empty arena right now, and within 10 minutes, looking at the floor, I could probably pick up enough loose change where I could have enough change in my hand to pay for a year membership of goldandblack.com right now. If you don't like it, you don't have to continue on, but $1 for a year, we think it'll be worth it. We think you'll want to stick it out with us. We certainly hope you would. We appreciate all of you who've been with us for decades now. There are many of you. I'm humbled by your loyalty to us, and we owe you our careers for it. But we don't think you'll be disappointed if you give us a try over at On3. So, okay. I got to start talking about basketball at some point. I am sorry, I was talking about business. Now I have to talk about the business I'm actually here for. I actually just recorded a 20-minute one of these things, and I said there's no freaking way anybody's going to watch 20 minutes of this nonsense. So that's going in the vault. I'm going to have to delete that one, and we'll just start over again here. Purdue wins 102-57 over what I cannot stop calling the Truman Show. I'm sure they hear that a lot. It's Truman State. It's Purdue's one and only exhibition game of the season. It's been well documented over many years, the relevance of events like this, when you understand that tonight you might have been looking at apples when in a couple of weeks you're going to be watching oranges. And this might not be relative context necessarily to what lies ahead for Purdue and for every college basketball team in the country at this level. But I think that's where these private scrimmages, like the one Purdue had at Marion University the other day, not an empty Marsh store. I'm retiring that joke until next year. That's where the value lies, going to play against a Cincinnati, or last year a West Virginia, or before at Dayton, or whoever it's been. I think those are really valuable experiences. These are good experiences, but those are more relevant experiences. That being said, Purdue's got a bunch of freshmen, including two of your primary ball handlers. As true freshmen, you have new pieces. You have a lot of pieces moving into expanded roles. And anytime you play in front of a crowd, I think there's value. Anytime you compete, you have value. I think, some undercurrent to the start of this season as well that bears mentioning here is the fact that not only are three of Purdue's four most notable ball handlers and decision makers this year, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, David Jenkins, either true freshmen or brand new to the program. Not only is Ethan Morton moving into a tripled role this season, not only is Brandon Newman coming off a season in which he, was kind of lost in the shuffle and now has to reestablish himself. Not only are Caleb First and, moving into a much more prominent role, not only are Trey Kaufman-Wren and Brian Waddell coming out of redshirt. I think I've about covered it by now, haven't I? Not only is there a lot of new stuff going on here, but this team didn't have a normal summer. Caleb First didn't practice all summer. Braden Smith, your most important ball handler, decision maker, didn't practice all summer. As a freshman, it's important. Camden Heide doesn't practice all summer. Brian Waddell is out for a period of time. Zach Eady's kind of coming and going with Team Canada. David Jenkins Jr. doesn't get here until like the end of June, if even that. Team didn't have a normal summer. Had Purdue come out here today and looked like they'd never played basketball before, we'd be sitting here saying, you know what? That was awful, but that's part of it. That's part of the process. There's a lot of stuff they got to work out here on the fly. This team, I think, is going to have a developmental arc similar to 2019, where Purdue did not beat a non-conference team. Purdue did not beat a high major team in non-conference play, wound up months later winning the Big Ten and almost going to the Final Four. I'm not saying this team has that same ceiling. I'm not saying that's what lies ahead, but I never would have said about that team that's what lies ahead for them either. I'm just saying that sometimes you got to play some games to get where you want to be. And, I figured Purdue tonight would look pretty rough around the edges. I thought the Cincinnati scrimmage was something they'd probably lose, because being young in the backcourt is tough. It is really tough in college basketball, and Purdue won the Cincinnati scrimmage by every count handily, and Purdue came out here today, turned the ball over 4 times, and looked really good offensively to start this game. They looked like a team, a post-entry operation that had done this before, when most of these guys haven't. Not only have they not played in Purdue's system doing this stuff against college competition, no less, but Braden Smith has never played with a big man as influential and as much of a presence and as much of a foundational piece as Zach Eady has. David Jenkins Jr. has never played with a player of Zach Eady's gravity and influence. Fletcher Lawyer has played with Keba Njai, who's at Penn State now. Caleb First, who's at Purdue now. You might have heard of him. In AAU, he's been around enough big guys to know how to play with a big guy, much more so than some of these other guys. But he's never played with a guy of this sort of bandwidth, this sort of gravity. It's an adjustment. It is going to be something for these guys that they have to learn how to do, because it's not something every basketball player, probably back in the 70s and 80s, when there were not Zach Eady's but Zach Eady type players out there. They probably coached you in youth basketball to know how to feed the post, to understand the intricacies of feeding the ball into the post. I don't think that happens anymore. Because, Kevin Garnett, Kevin Durant, the big guy has changed over the years, and the game has changed, and the Brontosaurus in the low post has gone extinct, with the exception of in West Lafayette, Indiana, where there's a very small ecosystem where they still thrive in their natural habitat. But there's nuance involved in this stuff that, Purdue is going to have to grow into. But Purdue tonight, I think Mason Gillis is a big part of it, because I think he's an excellent post-entry guy. But the first 4 minutes of this game, the first however many minutes of the game this was, I thought they looked sharp. Getting the ball inside, I looked like they knew what they were doing, when there'd be every reason in the world for them not to. I thought you saw a lot of promise in this team today, insofar as you can against an overmatched exhibition opponent who you led by as many as doesn't matter, 40-something points, 45 points. I thought, Purdue looks like a willing passing team. I think they're going to share the ball. I think they have enough offensive pieces. They might not have that second guy. I think you're going to have to – I think one question about this team is you're playing through Zach Eady first and second, most likely. He's your first option. Playing off of him is your second option, but do you have that second guy? Do you have that bucket getter? not just like I'm not saying like a Jaden Ivey. I'm just saying who can you rely on to be a consistent offensive threat? Somebody that opposing defenses have to worry about. You know, Fletcher Lawyer over the span of his career is going to be that guy. You know, Trey Kaufman-Renn over the course of his career is going to be that guy. Caleb Furst is going to be that guy, although I think he's maybe more of a guy who finds productivity with his effort and with some systematic stuff than necessarily you put the ball in his hands and he goes and gets a bucket. Braden Smith is going to be a guy who's going to make plays for people over the course of his entire career. But ready or not, these guys got to go because Purdue is going to rely on all of them. You know, I think a couple of the more positive things from this game was Purdue's passing combined with their lack of turnovers. I shouldn't say lack, because lack, I believe, suggests that you're missing something you want. And obviously you don't want turnovers, so you're not lacking turnovers, you're avoiding turnovers. Sorry, I picked a terrible word off the top of my head at 11:21 p.m. I'm sure you forgive me. This is the streaming flow of consciousness that I can't believe you guys live through after these games. I got to hurry this up. My point was that I thought that two things. The combination of Caleb Furst and Trey Kaufman-Renn, as I've been telling you since like May, I think can be really, really, really effective. I think both of those guys can be great players at Purdue on their own, but I think as a combination, they can be elite together. I think they can be really hard to guard. I think they complement each other really well, the same way I think Mason Gillis is almost like the central casting complement to Ross-Ade. I think that the dynamics, yes. I don't know, is it dynamicism? Is it dynamicism? I'm going to have to look up the derivative of the word dynamic. So I'm just going to go with the dynamics at play between Caleb Furst and Trey Kaufman-Renn and their respective skill sets. I think can be a really high-level combination for Purdue and something that's going to allow them to play different ways at times, offensively and defensively. Right now I'm talking about offense, and I'm losing track of this whole thing really badly. The fact David Jenkins and Brandon Newman both come off the bench and they're efficient, they make shots, they give you some scoring punch, they give you some energy, they make good decisions, they take care of the basketball. I don't know how much those guys are going to be out there together because I think there's a little bit of redundancy involved with them, even though David Jenkins is technically playing some point guard, some sort of, you know, different sort of mutation of a point guard traditionally. The role he's playing as Fletcher Lawyer and Ethan Moore also will do. Brandon Newman is a straight wing and will be, you know, all season, things like that. But I think the fact those guys can come in and give you a little bit of instant offense should they end up, you know, remaining as reserves, no guarantees on that front. I think that was really positive, but the fact that they came in and they were solid and, you know, they were efficient and they were effective gives you a lot of promise from an offensive perspective. I thought Brian Waddell was awesome tonight. Relative to my expectations, I thought he was awesome. And I'm saying awesome about a player who played 16 and a half minutes, scored 5 points, and had 3 assists and was plus 19. I don't know why I mentioned his plus minus. That made no sense. But for a guy who, you know, by every account has been set back in a really severe manner by injury time and again, and is on the periphery of Purdue's playing rotation by every account at this point, not because he's not good enough, but because the injuries have set him back. I thought he was outstanding. I thought he was really, really good and looked like a rotation guy to me, and a guy who's going to really help you from an offensive perspective if he gets an opportunity to. But my point is that the only starter I'm really talking about here right now is Ross-Ade, and I talked about Mason Gillis a little bit earlier. The freshman guards are going to get better with every game. Ethan Morton, I think, is a huge part of this team's equilibrium. Never, ever, ever this season fall in the trap of judging him by his scoring, even though I know that's people's natural inclination sometimes for obvious reasons, for very understandable reasons. But I think he's a huge part of this team's steadiness. I think he's their offensive equilibrium. I think he's their defensive foundation, on the perimeter at least. And I think his value goes way beyond scoring. But I think scoring is important. And I think the fact, as I'm talking about, Trey Kaufman-Renn comes out here, he gives you 15 points off the bench. He led you in scoring against Cincinnati. Caleb Furst gets you double digits tonight. David Jenkins gets you double digits. Brandon Newman gets you double digits. Some of these guys are guys Purdue is going to run stuff for now, too. I think that's a really important thing to point out. When Brandon Newman's gotten his productivity in the past, maybe his freshman year they were running stuff for him, but they weren't running stuff for him last year. David Jenkins, you'll probably have some plays in there for him. You'll run stuff with First and Trey Kaufman, and I'm fascinated to see the derivative of the offense Purdue's going to run with those two guys out there. I think from a scoring perspective, I think you have enough pieces. You want to see their consistency, and you want to see how they handle it when people are guarding them here in a few weeks. When Trey Kaufman runs out there on tape and people maybe start to double him, is he going to have that chemistry with Caleb First, where First is going to know he dives to the rim and Kaufman-Wren is going to have the awareness to hit him, diving out of the double, for that dunk? Are those guys going to be able to read each other's thoughts from an offensive perspective right away? They've practiced a lot this preseason together, and they'll play a lot together, so I wouldn't anticipate chemistry being an issue there. But Purdue's going to have to put them in good positions. That's on the coaching staff, too, with all of these guys, is putting these guys in positions to be as successful as possible through scheme as much as having recruited a roster with some ability here. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out. I think this is one of the more interesting teams there will be that I have covered. I think this is a team that's going to be really interesting from a fan's perspective. I think you're really going to enjoy watching this team. I think they speak to some of the things that Purdue fans really value, and I think you will enjoy this team. And I think everybody should buckle themselves up for what could be an entertaining ride here in November, December. There will be some ups and downs, but that's the great thing about college sports is you watch people grow up right in front of your eyes. You watch teams come together right in front of your eyes. You never know what's going to happen, and things are always interesting. So with that being said, I'm going to finally wrap this thing up. Thank you to the Purdue Union Club Hotel for your support. Please go to goldenblack.com and strongly consider putting down 4 quarters, 10 dimes, 100 pennies, or 20 nickels for your first year of membership at our new website on the On3 Sports Network. From Mackey Arena, for goldenblack.com, once again, this is Brian Neubert. Thank you for watching. Thank you for reading. Thank you for listening. Thank you for processing our materials, and we will have more materials for you to process next week following Purdue's season opener against Milwaukee. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.